some Path of Exile 2 reviews have come in. And I'm going to be playing this game when it comes out in a few days. I'm going to be playing the shit out of it. I'm going to play it too much, probably. It's going to impede on my real life. So let's see what these reviews have to say.
Path of Exile 2, the reviews are in. Good news is they're looking quite positive, with early impressions confirming.
It just looks incredible. It looks so good. Just the 3D animation of it.
Our suspicion that this could be the best ARPG of all time. Bad news, though, is that not everyone's happy review codes even exist, let alone that there are people out there already playing through the entire game. So let's talk about it. Earlier today, the first Path of Exile 2 review was released, coming from YouTuber Fextralife. In the 15-minute video, he said quite a few interesting things about the game. Here are some of the highlights. He refers to PoE 2 as the, quote, Dark Souls of ARPGs. We're never escaping this, right? Dark Souls will be with us forever. Now, mainly here, he was referring to the fact that the game is quite challenging, with no difficulty options to pick from, and even playing through the campaign as it was quite difficult. Lots of challenging boss fights were there that he found quite rewarding to overcome, and that the game gave him a similar feeling in terms of its difficulty to the likes of Dark Souls or Elden Ring. He said that the maps are large, estimating it takes a full hour to go from side to side. That sounds crazy, but we'll see. He also mentions that there was just a great sense of discovery while playing, be it discovering new lore, unlocking new mechanics, finding new enemies and areas, etc. Now, one quote that I absolutely loved was that with the amount and variety of content, that it feels like 3 games rolled into one. Love to see it. The campaign, he estimates, was about 35 to 40 hours, but after that, there's of course loads of endgame, and he mentioned feeling like he just scratched the tiniest surface of what's on offer after spending 40 hours with it, potentially saying that this could be the all-time king of the genre. He also mentioned that it feels like there are limitless combinations of builds, that respecking is much easier than it has been in the past.
What are we going to call games that are like Path of Exile now? Because we ain't calling them Diablo-like if this is going to be the pinnacle. We're going to have to call them Path-like. Most likely, that's probably what we're going to call them. Be it Path-like or Exile-like, but Path-like sounds better.
He thought the dark theme and overall art direction was outstanding and clearly inspired by Diablo 2. He felt it was the most dynamic combat in any ARPG he's ever played, and Fextralife has played quite a few. He also talked about things like the details on the skill effects and boss designs being some of the best he's seen in the industry. He was blown away by the amount of detail. He did play on controller for a bit and said that it feels like the game was designed for controller first. Interesting, saying that it plays even better than Diablo 4 did on a controller. Now, there were some negatives mentioned, including the fact that he saw a few bugs and got crashes during the review process, and also that maps felt a little empty in terms of the amount and frequency of events. Now, that said, he wrapped it all up by saying that he strongly believes PoE 2 will cement the studio as one of the all-time greats among the likes of FromSoft or Larian. Now, I would argue that GGG is already there just with PoE 1, but that's besides the point. And you know what? All of this sounds great to me. I am so happy to hear that the game is turning out nicely. So what exactly is the problem then? Well, there's 2 main things happening here. One is that the review was posted way prior to embargo, apparently nearly a week before it was supposed to come out. And number 2 is that everyone was under the impression that there would be no early access prior to the early access public launch, that there would be no early review copies of Path of Exile 2 prior to that December 6th release. Those weren't supposed to happen as far as everyone was concerned. So what exactly is going on here? Well, I will tell you right after this. Today's video is sponsored by Light of Moderum. This is an open world survival crafting game with action combat, all set in a world reclaimed by nature and ruled by giant mechanical beasts. Players will
it seems like a Horizon clone. I like Horizon.
Explore a variety of landscapes, uncovering ancient secrets and forging bonds with powerful mech animals. Some key features include a fully seamless open world where you'll traverse grasslands, deserts, forest, and mountains. There's a variety of weapons you'll use and action-packed combat versus a wide range of mechanical foes.
Straight up looks like Horizon.
You've got all the basics with light and heavy attacks, dodging, blocking, counters, and even special abilities. Fighting alongside you are the mech animals, over 100 to collect, each with unique designs and roles they fulfill, aiding you in battle. There's the survival crafting mechanics and unpredictable weather you'll have to protect against, and
Monster Horizon Hunter
co-op gameplay, as you can group with other players anytime, hunt,
Okay, I
and
get
check
it.
to the major mod room yourself using the link in the video description below. All right, so let's get into the major issues around everything that's been going on over the past 24 hours. So the first big thing is that it appears like Fextra Life posted their review, let's call it a tad early. At the time it went live, it was the only one out there, which had everyone speculating, are they the only outlet who got review codes? Now, no, as it turns out, they just posted far prior to the actual embargo. Now, after not too long, Fextra Life did take their video down. It was self-removed, and as of this recording, it is no longer available for viewing. You cannot go check the review yourself. Now, everyone was quick to blame them for breaking embargo because, of course, right, this is not a good thing. You shouldn't be doing it. But apparently the fault lies with the developer, Grinding Gear Games. They said themselves on Twitter, unfortunately, there was a miscommunication with Fextra Life that resulted in a video being posted early. This was a mistake on our end and is in no way on Fextra Life. Now, I was seeing some speculation that the developer might just be falling on the sword here, that they are lying about it being their fault so as to save Fextra Life from getting hate. The argument that I've seen being, if it was GGG's fault and there was a miscommunication, why didn't any of the other outlets break embargo? Like, why was it only Fextra Life who broke embargo? They all got the same embargo timing, right? And that sounds simple, right? But surprise, things are rarely as simple as they sound. As someone who has done quite a few reviews and previews in the past that come with embargoes, I can tell you the process looks different all the time, and it can often be quite a bit messy. So sometimes
It can also go on a case-by-case basis. Every single person that got an early review copy could have been under a different system. They could have all been handled differently based on who they are, what they do.
Sometimes you get all of the info, the embargo timing, basic details on the game, the installation and review guides, all of it comes nicely in a package in a pre-made PDF. Everyone gets the same PDF with all the same info. Easy, right? Like, no confusion to be had. Sometimes that happens. Other times, it's just a literal email from some contact at the company or in relation to the company that says, hey, here is the game code. Embargo lifts at such and such a time on such and such a day. Let us know if you have any questions. And then that's it. It's literally just an email that somebody sent with a couple of lines of info. And many times this will be like a back and forth conversation with them, giving you the code and then saying embargo comes later and then sending the embargo. And this process can and does vary wildly from game to game, from review and preview to review and preview. You also have to...
Yeah, it probably was Fextra Life's fault, but it also lies on GGG because, like, they made it overcomplicated, probably. Like, I don't know. This is kind of a non-issue to me. It's just everybody knows Fextra Life now because he accidentally released that review when he wasn't supposed to.
To keep in mind that a lot of times this process is handled by a third party. So it's not even a media contact or someone who actually works at GGG who is handing out this information. Many times developers will hire agencies to do all of the back and forth communication for pre-launch reviews. The point is, it is very possible that yes, somebody actually made a mistake when sharing the review info with Fextra Life. And this isn't me trying to build a case to defend them. I'm just letting people know this stuff can often be like way more casual and messy than you would assume. It is absolutely possible that somebody just screwed up. They gave them the wrong day. They accidentally typed the wrong time zone. They didn't even include a time zone. Mistakes like this happen somewhat frequently. In fact, I can tell you, I have been sent wrong embargo information on numerous occasions, and I'm not talking like just once or twice. It's happened several times over this past year alone. Now, fortunately, those were all corrected prior to me posting, either because I decided to double check to make sure that the information was accurate, accurate, or because they send a follow-up email that says, hey, we made a mistake, the embargo is actually at this specific time and day instead. Now, of course, I don't know exactly what happened in this particular situation. We're all just guessing, but I do believe Grinding Gear Games. Like, I don't think they're lying about this being their fault, because I've been a part of this process so much over the years that I can tell you mistakes are not uncommon. And frankly, I think it's ridiculous to think that the devs would be lying here. If there was no miscommunication, GGG could have just not mentioned the embargo break that happened, right? They took the video down, they could have just ignored it, but they made a whole big post about it, I think because it was their fault. There's really no sense in them lying to cover Fextra Life's butt. When somebody breaks embargo...
Yeah, that makes absolutely zero sense to me. I've been seeing people on X saying this, and like, it's stupid. Stop it.
Purposefully, you know what happens? You get blacklisted and you don't get codes from that company ever again. The devs are not coming out lying to cover up somebody else's screw up. Like, I at least have never seen this happen. Maybe this is the first time, right? But anyways, that out of the way, this isn't even the biggest issue that people have right now. Like, this isn't the main reason people are upset that because Fextra Life broke the embargo, right? The main reason that a lot of people are really upset right now is just the fact that pre-launch review codes are even happening. Many were under the impression that this wasn't going to be the case for Path of Exile 2, and that we would all be playing the early access version of the game for the first time together on December 6th. So what's happening? Well, GGG addressed this as well in their tweet by saying, we've seen some speculation that some people might already have access to the early access version of Path of Exile 2. To clarify, some traditional games media have been given access to a review version of the game. Part of the stipulation that media were given is that this is for review purposes only. They may share their opinions of the game, but are not allowed to produce guide-style content from this version that would spoil the discovery of the game or post unedited playthroughs. They are not playing on the same servers as the early access version, so none of the progress will be kept. In addition, all of the content they produce is embargoed until the early access on December 6th, so no content is supposed to be posted until then. That's then when they said, sorry, we had a miscommunication with Fextra Life. It's not their fault, it's ours. And then they wrap up by saying, on release day, we want players to be able to make a more informed choice about if they would like to buy a key. We believe that allowing traditional games media access should be able to accomplish this without spoiling the game. Okay, so there you have it. They have sent out review codes to traditional games media. This was done with the caveat that they couldn't post any guides or full walkthroughs. It was on entirely separate servers, so no progress will carry over, and the embargo is set to lift on December 6th when the game officially launches into early access. Now, besides the fact that now that we know the embargo is for December 6th, that means whatever miscommunication may have happened with Fextra Life was hilariously massive. Like, they gave an embargo timing that was 6 days wrong. Excuse me? I don't know how that happens, but like I said, it's a sloppy process. There is miscommunication. People are misinformed. Sometimes the people relaying the information, the in-betweens, the agencies that are working with the developer and publisher and sharing the information and dealing with all the reviewers, sending out codes and all that. Sometimes somebody just doesn't know everything, or they get something wrong, or they type something wrong. Like, that does happen. But anyways, that aside, people...
And they're probably like working on the fly too. They're in the middle of something when they have to send this email, or like in the middle of a million things. Like, so many things could happen. This is like just such a non-issue. I don't really even care if people actually were playing the full version early and making build guides and stuff.
People are just upset at the fact that anybody is playing the game prior to its full release. Why? Well, there's a few very particular reasons. For starters, people just have an issue with Fextra Life in general, them getting access, because mainly, besides people who just don't like Fextra Life for a variety of reasons, many of which I think are justified. I don't have a personal grudge against the guy or the channel.
I don't know. I've never heard of Fextra Life until recently because of this PoE drama.
But I understand why some people don't like him for the embedded Twitch view boosting that he does, for some of where they're getting their guide informations.
I don't give a shit about that.
Or the quality of their guides, you know, whatever. He's not what many consider traditional games media, because they do run a wiki. Whatever you think of that wiki's quality, they do have a wiki with guides and information, and it even appears like they may have already started populating their wiki with info that was acquired during the review, which I wouldn't be too surprised if they have at least got that process going. If they've truly played the game for 40 hours and they're going to have a wiki on PoE 2, they do have a wiki on PoE 2, they're at least going to start pre-filling out that information, even if it's embargoed for a week after launch, although it looks like some of that went live and then they took it down. But anyways, the point is, someone like Fextra Life isn't really just traditional games media, because they have a wiki and they do post guides, and this makes it counter to GGG's stated philosophy of not wanting to spoil the discovery phase of the game prior to launch, or just not wanting to spoil it in general. If a review outlet like IGN or YouTubers, someone like SkillUp, if they get a review, we know it's going to be like a focused on the base game and sort of a one-off thing. Like, there is little to no risk of outlets like that, of people like that, of channels like that, spoiling the experience and ruining the discovery of the game, especially for the late game and end game content. Like, it's not going to happen. But that brings us to the other thing that's causing complaints here. It's that players don't want the game solved prior to release. And this is a valid concern. I totally understand it. It's one that was widely expressed during the launch of Diablo 4, because with that game, myself and many others did have access to D4 prior to it coming out. And specifically, the hardcore sweats of the crowd, the super blasters, they basically had the whole game figured out before it launched, like with leveling and end game class build guides, with boss fighting tactics, with farming routes, so on and so on. I think especially for a genre like ARPGs, there's a lot of people who want to feel like they are part of that discovery phase all together as a community at the same time, and that people who aren't YouTubers or aren't guide makers also have a chance to come up with some of those.
I think people just want the old style of having games in a community again. Like, when Diablo 2 first came out, man, I remember it was insane. It was absolutely insane. I remember. I was not there. I've seen videos and heard people talk about it. I was way too young.
Those great builds. Like, there's people who have find value in that. So that's something that gets taken away when people have access to the game 2 to 3 weeks prior to launch, and especially people who are the type that are going to be figuring all this stuff out. So yeah, the concern is more so that Fextra Life running a wiki and posting guides, he isn't quite the same as, again, like an IGN or a YouTube reviewer like SkillUp who gets a review code, because they're not going to be posting endgame build guides, right, and meta builds. Now, I will say, though, at the same time, people are expressing this concern. I really don't think it's an actual issue, because Fextra Life in particular, in my eyes, is way closer to traditional games media than he is to the hardcore ARPG enthusiast. And what I mean specifically is I am under zero impression that any guides Fextra Life comes up with are going to be anywhere remotely close to the best, to meta, to actually being the ideal thing and actually being the solution to whatever problem is in the game, right? It's not the same as the ARPG blasters out there, people like Rex and DM and Rob, any of the crew on Maxroll and Icy Veins, for example. Those players getting early access does mean the game would be solved prior to launch. And as far as I'm aware, GGG hasn't given pre-launch codes to that portion of the community. So even though Fextra Life does run a wiki and post guides, I really don't think there's legitimate concern of them solving the game. They could certainly still spoil stuff, though, and if they're already filling up their wiki, that may end up happening depending on when that wiki embargo is. Well, Extra Life and embargo timings, you know, that's kind of a touchy subject as of this video, right? But truthfully, yeah, like all of that actual solving of the game, of finding the best builds, that is still gonna happen at launch and post-launch when all of the blasters and all of the hardcore members of the ARPG community are finally playing the game. Now, with that said, though, if Grinding Gear Games truly wanted to fully...
I'm about to have to prepare for the influx of Path of Exile content on my timeline. I'm gonna have so many tutorials being recommended to me, so many drama videos, so many reviews. I can't wait. I'm gonna watch a whole bunch of them.
Fully avoid any spoilers, any solving of, or any ruining of Path of Exile 2's discovery phase and the fresh launch experience. They shouldn't have sent out pre-release codes to anyone, especially people who run wikis. But again, I'm really not trying to single Fextra Life out. Everyone else is doing that as is. And like I said, I don't have a personal grudge.
Like, IGN shouldn't get one. IGN especially shouldn't get one. And like Metacritic and all those places, because they are bullshit. They review terrible games with high scores because of politics. Their Dragon Age Veilguard score is ridiculous.
Against him, I do think some of the stuff that's been associated with Fextra Life is a little shady, right? Like the embedding to boost views and whatever. How accurate someone's wiki isn't like whatever. You can make a bad wiki if you want, but yeah, the view boosting was pretty shitty. So I understand why people have a really sour taste in their mouth when it comes to that channel and that individual in particular. But my main point being is they just got themselves in a really tricky situation here. They shouldn't have sent out pre-release codes to anyone, whether it's traditional games media or otherwise, if they wanted a truly pure experience as they're stating they are. I get the argument that they're making is that they wanted to inform consumers, but consumers can be informed. It doesn't have to be on the day that it releases, especially since it's an early access release. And I say this as someone who does pre-launch reviews and previews and videos all the time, right? So like I have a bias to suggest that these companies are giving out pre-release codes because I can post videos early and those videos can get views. Even if that all stopped happening, I'd adjust, I'd be fine. There's still a lot of videos that I can make. I don't only do reviews after all. This isn't a review. But yeah, anyways, I'm not someone who would be figuring out the best builds anyways. There's no fear of that. I'm not making guides. I'm really probably not solving anything about an ARPG. But regardless, GGG did put themselves in kind of an awkward situation with this one. They profess to not wanting to ruin the game for their hardcore audience, and I believe what they say, but at the same time, they're wanting to market as much as possible, giving access to publications with a wider reach outside of the most hardcore ARPG fans. And as a result, well, we've ended up in this rather messy circumstance. Now, is this going to ruin my personal experience with the game? No, not at all. I am not bothered that IGN, Fextra Life, or whoever else got access will be posting their reviews on launch day.
I'm bothered by it, but it's still not gonna affect my experience playing this game. I just don't like those companies. And I don't want people to get early copies of any games, actually.
And as mentioned, none of them are actually going to have the best builds or really spoil too much of the game, even if they do post guides or whatever, which apparently they're not going to be allowed to until sometime after release. I will wrap up by saying, though, that the most significant thing that I took out of this whole situation is that the review, however embargo breaking it was overwhelmingly positive. Like, they were singing glowing praise for this game, and that is awesome. Like, I was already excited for PoE 2. I am now hyped. This is looking fantastic. I cannot wait to play. I can't wait to see all the discovery that happens for people from December 6th onwards. But anyways, that is it for this video. Let me know what you think about this, just this whole situation, this topic in general. I know it's a pretty heated one. I know there's a lot of strong feelings on the side of people not wanting the game spoiled. Like, whatever personal grudge people have against Fextra Life aside. Yeah, I mean, I totally get it, especially with a game like this. I understand. I do understand the complaints. But that is it for me for today. Thank you as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed the vid. I'll see you all next time. Oh boy.
Oh yeah, that was a good video. Very, very informative. Basically told me that all of everything that I've thought about Path of Exile 2 is correct, and that I will be playing this game, and it will consume my life, and I can't wait for it to consume my life. I invite it to.